Simon, it would be remiss of us to not talk about what's happening now in the world in light of the UN Security Council resolution, and of course 1 week and a day on from Paris. And you've picked out
and what happened in Mali as well.
Mali yesterday.
Well, I've picked out Jason Burke's piece on the bottom there. I mean, there are a number of people I think who write really well about the Middle East, and what I think's really interesting about this is that he makes the point that if the Mali attacks really are the responsibility of an Al-Qaeda affiliate, what this illustrates is that what lies underneath all this is a massive rivalry between Al-Qaeda and ISIS or ISIL. So actually, what I think is interesting about this is two things. One is that you see, since May 1916, when the so-called Sykes-Picot Agreement divided up the Middle East between the French and the British, so Iraq and Lebanon and Syria, all these places, the governance of them was divided up between the French and the British. And what you're really seeing here is the collapse of lots of the nation states, really. And so there's a void. And into that void is moving these two rival factions. What I think is interesting about this is that when people talk about, Islamic terrorism, actually it doesn't describe it right. What it is it's two rival groups of extremists fighting for territory and power using religion as justification, which is slightly different than talking about Muslim terrorists, if you see what I mean. And I think it's a really interesting piece, and there's a lot of people beginning to emerge with this analysis. Robert Key from The Independent also has very similar analysis. So I find that a really interesting piece.
There are going to be more and more pieces like this explaining to us exactly these factions as well, which we need to know because we haven't had an understanding.
Well, we haven't, and there is this easy sort of elision, this idea of Muslim terrorists, or is it, I mean, there is a Shia-Sunni thing, and that's the other interesting thing, I mean, just by the by, is the realignment between Saudi Arabia and Iran. What America's done by bringing Iran back into the equation, of course, is bringing a force in that can challenge Saudi Arabia, which funds a lot of this very dangerous terrorism. So it's a really interesting realignment.